जो भी काम आप करते हो ना सब समझा देना. Okay, so hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the EduphoreIAS, the Hindu analysis series. Today, as you know, the date is 7/7, that is 7th of July, fine. So we are starting with the first of the front page of the today's Hindu, and first, as usual, we will be focusing on the important news of the items or the articles from the front page itself. Okay, so let us have a quick look. Only politics going on, so nothing important from this part. Okay, this side, of course, we have some important things to discuss today, and skip tab on that. Chandrayaan 3 launch on July 14. So finally, countdown begins, and ISRO has, declared July 14 to be the date of launch of this Chandrayaan 3. Okay. After that, another thing which is important for the day is should internet bans be used for public order? Fine. So its first flag shutdowns on frivolous grounds. So we'll see this as well in questions and format today. And apart from that, let us see quickly what is important on the right hand side. So nothing as such. SC create any local challenge to ordinance. Of course, this ordinance which issued an essential commentary that will be, and that has been listed in Supreme Court for the and the date of hearing is July 10th. Fine. It's Monday, hopefully, yes. So this petition seeking to crash an ordinance that allows the AG to exercise control over civil service in Delhi. Fine. So we'll keep tab on this, that what's going to, how the Supreme Court is coming up with its own pronouncement, judgment, is fine. And then it will be an important moment, to take into account many things. Let us say the federal structure as well, and cooperative federalism or competitive federalism, or of course the whole thing revolves around the federalism. Fine. So we'll be keeping tab on that as well, and of course special status of Delhi. So freedom of expression being misused in Canada by anti-India elements, Khalistan elements basically creating ruckus in Canada, and they are circulating posters inciting violence against Indian diplomats in Canada, US, Australia ahead of an expected pro-Khalistan demonstration on Saturday. So this is what being red flagged by Indian government, and MEA spokesperson Anita Bagchi. Fine. So he said these posters inciting violence against our diplomats and our diplomatic premises abroad are unacceptable. Of course, it will be unacceptable, and we have called on the government of Canada to ensure safety of our diplomats and our diplomatic missions in Canada. Fine. So time and again, you see from the last few days we are discussing or we see this kind of news coming up. Okay. Apart from that, Manipur SC to hear internet ban today. Okay, in Manipur, of course. And then, as in envoy says G20 summit is key event for Russia. Putin visit now a possibility. So the Russian president Vladimir Putin may attend. I mean, there are more chances now that he may attend the G20 summit, which is going to be hosted by India. Fine. So first time, after this Ukraine and Russia conflict, Mr. Putin may be confronting the Western leaders. Fine. So hopefully we will be attending this meeting in India. Fine. Apart from that, nothing more important from this front page. So quickly we will be moving to the next pages, and you see the next page will be related to Delhi, the local news. So you can safely skip those from Delhi. Of course, we should read, be aware of whatever going on in the surroundings. Apart from that, again, politics and politics only. So again, we can skip. Yes, something is important here. The non-compliance of orders of the Green Tribunal, Green Code by the government is a serious issue. Of course. So outgoing chairperson of NGT, National Green Tribunal, says waste management and environmental safety are two main challenges in India. Okay. So outgoing chairperson of NGT, that is former Supreme Court judge or Justice A.K. Goyal, Adarsh Kumar Goyal, NGT says waste management and environmental safety, two main challenges in India. This is what he said. Fine. And non-implementation of or non-conformity with the orders of NGT is of course a big bigger challenge in all these two. Right? Okay. So you can see, I mean, you can use this for some GS as well, especially capturing the limits of the environment section. That what are the entities' major achievements in the past 5 years. So he said, my only achievement is taking decisions on pending issues to the best of my understanding and the data available. In some cases, people died because of breach of environmental safety. Fine. He said, I gave directions for payments of compensation and taking measures. So basically, he advertised major achievement is taking decisions on the pending issues. Fine. And what are the 3 main challenges to the environment in India? So waste management is one big issue, environmental safety is another, and then comes safety norms in industrial processes. Fine. So this is 50 incidents of breach of safety norms resulting in deaths took place that we dealt with in the last 2 to 3 years. So again, it is one of the instances or example you can quote. So what is the way out? Way out is an issue to be addressed by the government or the executive that has to implement it, of course. We say that the quality of water is bad, so remedy it. But if it is not being done, it is a serious issue to be addressed by the government. Non-compliance of orders remains a serious issue, of course. NGT had formed a special bench headed by Chairperson Delhi to get cases pending for more than, of course, these are the some achievements. Okay. So you see that the entity received 15,132 new cases in 5 years and disposed of 16,000. I mean, 16,000 disposed more than received? No, this is not related to this only, but it includes even the pending cases as well. Fine. So for that matter, he says that we have gone by zero adjournments and have made procedures simpler. We accept only online filing and have independent verification of facts. So how such kind of positive, you can say, disposal of 60,000 more than 60,000 cases because of zero adjournment. Fine. So they are followed. And he says we have gone by zero adjournment. So no adjournments as we can tell you in the course, and have made procedures simpler and only online filing and data verification. So of course this all in combination in aggregate has made or you can say having positive results overall. So of course you can use this further in your GS paper, especially related to something being asked in NGT, International Green Tribunal, or even related to some environment where you might be asked to give suggestions for the pendency of cases and all. Right? Even in general, let us say High Court, Supreme Court pendency of cases. There too you can quote this as well. Fine. Okay. Finally, we have landed on the editorial page, the most important articles for the day, written by former Vice President of India, you can see that. And the title is India Needs a Responsible Code. So as the title suggests, India needs. So of course, in this article, he is going to talk in affirmation. I mean, he is basically going to underline that why UCC is needed and why UCC is must for India. So of course, throughout this article, he is quoting of course, the chief architect of our constitution, Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Alongside that, he also quotes the great, of course, the Constituent Assembly, which finally resulted in the formation of the constitution, and the Constituent Assembly debates, and the two, these big personalities like Radha Krishna Swami Iyer alongside K. Munshi. Fine. So he is quoting their comments as well with respect to the UCC. Fine. So, of course, he underlines the importance of UCC. Now, what exactly is the UCC? So, when you talk about UCC, like Uniform Civil Code, remember in India, let us say Hindus have different personal laws which has been codified, Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Succession Act. So all these has been codified through the parliaments, by the parliament, of course, in 1950, 51 and all, 56. So there are different acts govern succession, marriage, divorce and all civil matters, more or less. Fine. So Hindu marriage, marriage special act, or you can say the Hindu personal laws or acts have already been codified by the action of parliament itself. Then we have Muslim personal laws, then we have Christian personal laws, and so on. Fine. So different community, you can say, of course, especially religious community in the sense, they have different sets of uniform laws. So the focus of UCC since Constitution or Constituent Assembly debates have been on having a just single uniform civil code. Fine. Especially dealing with the civil matters such as marriage, divorce, succession, fine, all these things. So for that, there should be one law for the entire population, be it Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Sikhs, Jains, or any other community, fine, per se. Because what is important here is that the law of the land of the constitution should be supreme, fine, and be given the primacy, fine, in place of the different personal laws. Okay, because when you are having a single country, if you are having a very good analogy given by Prime Minister just the last week, that if you in a single family, if you are having two sets of laws for different members, would it be would the family be able to govern itself? Fine. So of course not. So how come it's possible to govern a country based on such a diverse country, of course, with the different sets of personal laws for different communities. So that's why more or less from the last 1 2 months you see that more of discussions going on around the UCC, and hopefully the government is going to more chances that government will be introducing the bill related to this as well in the upcoming monsoon session. So two bigger things going to happen in this monsoon session, which is starting from 20th of July. The first is the digital personal of course bill, digital personal yes, data protection bill, of course, and this is one again a bigger one. And apart from that, UCC we will also see to be going to be introduced in the parliament, because now even the Prime Minister has openly accepted or advocated for this UCC. So of course the government is in moving on the direction to introduce this bill in the upcoming session. So let us quickly have a look what exactly our Pranava specifically trying to say. So India being a diverse nation, of course, indeed, without doubt. That's why we say unity in diversity. India being a diverse nation is home to many religions, each with its distinct personal laws governing marriages, divorce, adoption, inheritance and succession. It will be accurate to say that the absence of uniform civil code, uniform, that's the name, uniform means uniformity. In civil matters, there will be a single code which will be uniform, transcending the different religions, community, caste and all, everything. Fine. So single, uniform, universal, you can say, code for the entire citizens, entire population. Has only sought to be perpetuate inequality. So the absence of UCC has only sought to perpetuate inequalities and inconsistencies in our land of rich diversity. In fact, this has been a hindrance in the nation's progress towards social harmony, economic and gender justice. So, Honorable former Vice President of India saying that this absence of UCC has led to only sought to perpetuate inequalities alongside inconsistencies in our land of rich diversity, and also served as a hindrance in the nation's progress towards social harmony, economic and gender justice. Okay. So Prime Minister Modi had last week called for enactment of UCC, pointing out the anomaly of having varying laws for different laws for different categories of citizens. I have already told you about this. Okay. So in the Constituent Assembly, let us go to the Constituent Assembly, because of course whatever constitution today we have today, it is a result of the Constituent Assembly debates by the greater personalities, by the learned people here. across the spectrum. So in the Constituent Assembly, what are the views related to the UCC? So the debate on the UCC goes back to the Constituent Assembly debates. In fact, one could assert that the legality of UCC is rooted in the Constitution of India, because Constitutional Assembly debates and also Supreme Court of India judgments, Constitutional Assembly debates shed light on the need and the objective behind promoting a common civil code. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Indian Constitution, had made a strong case in the Constituent Assembly for framing a UCC. He stressed the importance of UCC in ensuring gender equality and eradicating prevailing social evils. So you see that Baba Saheb Ambedkar positively, he was in favor of introducing UCC. Countering the arguments of some of the members of the Constituent Assembly who were opposed to the idea, Dr. Ambedkar said or observed that I personally do not understand why religion should be given this vast. So he said, I personally do not understand why religion should be given this vast, expansive jurisdiction so as to cover the whole of life and to prevent the legislature from encroaching upon that field. So you see what he's saying, that why the religion should be, bigger than, let us say, the law of the land or legislature, or stopping, not allowing the legislature from encroaching upon that field or religion. After all, what are we having this liberty for? We are having this liberty in order to reform our social system, which is so full of iniquities, so full of inequalities. Now, inequity and inequality are two different things. Iniquities are, let us say, avoidable situations, fine, and these are, let us say, this avoidable situations exist because of, let us say, or avoidable discriminations, even you can say, or this distinction exists because of, let us say, poor governance, right? But inequality is more or less related to the possession of wealth and resources. So discriminations and other things which conflict with our fundamental rights. It is therefore quite impossible for anybody to conceive that the personal law shall be excluded from the jurisdiction of the state. So see what Dr. Ambedkar said, that it is impossible for anybody to conceive that personal law shall be excluded from the jurisdiction of the state. So which one is bigger? Of course, not the religion, not the community or the personal law, but what is bigger is the law of the land, constitution, and of course the state itself, right? The country itself. Other distinguished and erudite members, basically learned members of the Constituent Assembly such as Aladi Krishna Swami Iyer and K. M. Munshi also advocated the enactment of UCC. Krishna Swami Iyer argued that the Article 44, of course under DPSP, which deals with this UCC, article actually aims at amity or not, and not the enmity. Fine, actually aims at amity and not the enmity. What it aims at is trying to arrive at a common measure of agreement in regard to these matters. Similarly, K. M. Munshi also called for UCC in the Constituent Assembly. He said the point, however, is this: whether we are going to consolidate and unify our personal laws in such a way that the way of life of the whole country may in course of time be unified and secular. What have these things got to do with the religion? I really difficult to understand. So you see the great learned personalities of, when debating in the Constituent Assembly, they were, even Dr. Ambedkar used the same kind of sentence when he says that I fail to understand that why religion should be given the primacy, right? That why religion should be, above than the state or the legislation or the law of the land. So what have these things got to do with the religion? I really fail to understand. This is the same thing being said by K. M. Munshi as well. So all of three great personalities were in favor of introducing this UCC under Article 44 of the DPSP. Since a consensus on UCC could not be reached in the Constituent Assembly, the subject found a place under Article 44 of the Directive Principles. So directive principles of the state policy are the directions being given by the Constitution to the state, that is government, of course, current government or the country itself, that this Article 44 in a sense is the constitutional mandate which requires the state to enact a UCC, state or government you can say here, that applies to all citizens, cutting across faiths, practices and personal laws. So Article 44 is more or less is a mandate for the state or the government. Simultaneously I am using state or the government. The state here is of course India and government of course the central government. So this is a mandate for the central government to enact the UPSC Uniform Civil Code that applies to all the citizens, cutting across the religions, faiths, practices and personal laws. Fine. It would also be pertinent to point out here that the Supreme Court had dwelled on the matter on more than one occasion. So, of course, time and again, the Supreme Court has discussed or dwelt on these matters, especially in the case called Shah Banu case, Triple Talaq case. The top court had observed in the Shah Banu case that it is a matter of regret that Article 44 has remained a dead letter. The court had pointed out that the UCC would help the cause of national integration. The top court ruled that. So of course, Supreme Court even said that had there been a UCC, or UCC is a positive, step, and it can result in national integration. Right? Okay. So the top court ruled that in the constitutional order of priorities, the right to religious freedom is to be exercised in a manner consonant with the vision underlying the provisions of Part 3, that is fundamental rights. Indian Young Lawyers Association case 2018, in which the Supreme Court said this, that right to religious freedom is to be exercised in a manner consonant with the other, the fundamental rights under Part 3. However, despite articulating its views clearly on the subject in many cases, the Supreme Court refrained from issuing a clear directive to the government, being mindful of the fact that the framing of laws falls within the exclusive domain of the Parliament. Of course, so here you see the shining example of separation of power, where though Supreme Court advocates that UCC should be there, but still refrained from giving any direction to the government or itself trying to legislate on the matter. Fine, because of course legislation on coming up with the laws or rules is a domain of or exclusive domain of Parliament. Right? The essence. So what is the most significant aspect of this? Is the essence we're talking about. The UCC is therefore a step in the right direction, long overdue, to safeguard the fundamental rights of all citizens and reduce social inequalities and gender discrimination. Why we are seeing this social inequality and gender discrimination? Of course, you see that, for example, let us compare to the Hindu personal laws, and which has already been codified, and Muslim personal laws. Of course, you see that in the Hindus and the Muslims, let us say the marriageable age for girls are different. Fine. In one, let us say Hindu, if it is 18 years, because it has been codified, and we are in process of this. Of course, this was to be revised to 21, but for the time being, let us say it's 18 years, fine, legally, legal marriageable age is 18 years. But in Muslims, a girl becomes marriageable on the onset of puberty itself, that is somewhere in the range of 15-16 years itself. They will interact with that. So, so you see the differences. So of course, it's kind of gender discrimination, fine, based on the religion, you can say. So we should not be permitted in any, of course, democratic setup or country like us, or any country to say, fine. So it should be seen and understood as an attempt at creating a verified legal framework that affords the principle enshrined in the Constitution and reaffirmed by the Supreme Court judgments. So of course, the UCC would be resulting in, creating a unified framework that affords the principle enshrined in our Constitution that there should be no discrimination on the basis of religion. Let us say. The doubts in the minds of some and the opposition to this initiative stemming from unfounded apprehensions need to be addressed through enlightened debate and constructive. Okay, so whatever apprehensions are there, fears in the minds of the opposition or anybody who is opposing this move must be addressed through enlightened debate. Of course, through debate and discussions, any let us say bigger problem can be sorted out, of course, and the solution could be a consensus, a general consensus could be built. So, enlightened debate and constructive engagement is must. Fine, so that it will be acceptable to everybody and across the, of course, religious community as well. So the overarching objective is to ensure that there is no gender discrimination. Everyone enjoys the fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution, and then the law of the land is uniform for every citizen in our country. So these are the important things. The core objective of UCC is that there should be no gender discrimination based on the different personal laws, fine, across the different regions. And apart from that, everybody should enjoy the fundamental rights that has been enshrined in the Part 3 of the Constitution, and that the law of the land, that is the Constitution, is uniform for every citizen in our country. Right? It should not discriminate on the basis of course. It will serve as a powerful instrument for promotion of equality and justice for all citizens. Seen in this slide, every citizen should welcome it. Okay. So as Dr. Ambedkar and other learned members of the Constituent Assembly have proposed, uniformity in personal laws is essential for empowering women and ensuring gender equality in matters of marriage, divorce, and inheritance. Fine. UCC would eliminate discriminatory practices that deprive women of their rights and provide them with equal opportunities and protections. Our diverse society calls for unified legal framework to foster social cohesion and national integration. So, of course, it's saying that if you see the issue in personal laws, that's not only with respect to what I said about the marriageable age, but also related to the divorce. Because Hindus have different sets of, let us say, divorce, and Muslims have different sets of procedures for divorce. Of course, even related to the inheritance, succession. So, of course, these all matters, since they are civil matters, civil in nature, so these have been regulated over the time by, even today regulated by, let us say, Muslim personal laws. Right? The Constituent Assembly members recognize the existing challenges and stress the need for UCC to bridge the gaps and promote a sense of unity among diverse communities. So you see, where the Constituent Assembly members recognize the need for UCC. Personal law should have a two-dimensional acceptance. So it is saying that, but not talking about altogether discarding the personal laws, but keeping it but with a two-dimensional acceptance. They should be constitutionally compliant and consistent with the norms of gender equality and the right to live with dignity. Of course, if these two dimensions and elements are there in any personal law, then they could be accepted as it is. So the Constitution is, of course, the North Star which guides us in this regard. It exemplifies the essential principles of justice, gender equality, and secularism, which taken together set the foundation of the UCC. Again, very good. So, of course, Constitution exemplifies the essential principle of justice, gender equality, and secularism. So, remember, justice, gender equality, and secularism can be ensured only when we have a uniform law, or we are having different personal laws in conformity with the Constitution and other laws and norms, right? Which should be acceptable to all. Finally, he makes an appeal. He urges to the fellow citizens and leaders of religious groups and political parties to rise above all differences and support implementation of the UCC. They should contribute to making it an instrument of social reform, a legislative framework fully aligned with the principles of justice and equity underscored by the Constitution. Fine. So this is what he is saying, that he urging for the citizens, from citizens alongside the religious groups and political parties to rise above all the differences, and let us support this, the implementation or enactment of UCC, right? Okay, because it's a code that provides legal protection against discrimination, a progressive piece of legislation to guarantee equal human rights and give tangible shape to the vision of country's illustrious founding fathers. It will be yet another step, a very significant one, towards building a new, inclusive, egalitarian, based on equality India that we all want. So, of course, UCC will go a long way in ensuring that, or being a very significant step towards building a new, inclusive, about New India, inclusive India, and egalitarian India. Egalitarian is based on equality in every matter, right? Without any exclusion on the basis of religion or other, let us say, basis, gender, religion, caste, right, etc. Okay, so of course it's a very good insightful article, you can say, you must read it, but this is, of course, covering the one side of the picture, of course, more or less, that former Vice President is batting for the introduction of implementation or enactment of UCC. So we need to, since you are preparing for this UPSC, so we need to be neutral in stance, but of course the reality is reality, that is a need of art to come up with such kind of acts. So next important is from the economic side, that is internationalizing the rupee without the coin tossing. Okay, so this saying that do internationalize the rupee but do not toss the coin. Right? Okay, so why so is saying such things? Let us will be a little bit of conceptual thing here from the economics. So whenever they will be coming up, I will explain the same there and there only. So trying to be patient, alongside that be focused. Okay, so the government's announcement of long-term roadmap for further internationalization of the rupee can turn out to be a positive exercise. Now, what internationalization of rupee means in simple terms? It means that, let us say, dollar is an international currency. Fine. Whenever we import something from, let us say, importing petroleum products, so we generally make payments in dollars. Fine. So of course, dollar is a universal currency, you can say, or most acceptable international currency. Fine, which has been totally internationalized. So in the similar lines, rupee could also be internationalized provided there is demand for the rupee in the market. But of course, different countries. Market here means the exchange market. I'm talking about foreign exchange market. Fine, where exchange of foreign currencies takes place. Alongside that, let us say with the neighboring countries, when we did or when we are having bilateral trades. Let us say we are dealing in or making payments or accepting that in terms of rupee instead of dollars. Fine, in order to cut our over dependence on the dollars, and also to safeguard our economy from the instability of, or let us say, the fallout out of the global shocks. Fine, especially due to the currency or the foreign currency this exchange rate issues. So in 1950s, remember earlier rupee was the part of the Gulf of the West Asian nations. Fine, but over the time, because of the instability of the rupee and lesser confidence, this rupee was replaced by their own sovereign currency. So we see how it happened. In the 1950s, the Indian rupee was legal tender for almost all transactions in the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, with the Gulf monarchies purchasing rupee with the pound sterling. Of course, it's UK's currency, pound sterling. So you can say the Gulf countries, I'm talking about Persian Gulf nation, area, West Asian nation, West Asian nations, of course. So they did not, let us say, have this kind of sovereign, their own sovereign currencies. So they were basically, what they used to do, they used to exchange the pound sterling of UK, of course, Britain, with Indian rupee, and they were more or less dealing with Indian rupees. And since rupee was legal tender for almost all transactions in the UAE and of course other countries like Oman and Qatar. Okay, so in 1959, to mitigate the challenges associated with the gold smuggling, the Reserve Bank of India Act was brought in and enabling the creation of the Gulf rupee, with the notes issued by the central bank for circulation only in West Asian region. Holders of the Indian currency were given 6 weeks to exchange their Indian currency, with the transition happening smoothly. Fine. So this amendment that took place in 1959, where the Reserve Bank of India Act was amended in 1994, enabling the creation of the Gulf rupee, with the notes issued by the central bank for circulation only in the West Asian region, and holders of the Indian currency were given 6 weeks to exchange their Indian currency. Further, this such things we will see with respect to Nepal after demonetization, and of course, this even recently RBI announced to deposit back in this banking system the 2000 rupee notes. So of course, even Nepal had issue with this as well. So however, in 1966, then what happened? India devalued its currency. So devaluation is basically, it's an economic concept, international economics में generally use होता है. So devaluation is basically when you are lowering down your value of rupee. Let us say $1 earlier was equivalent to rupees 50. Now the same dollar is equivalent to rupees 60. Means somewhere the value of rupee has reduced with respect to the or declined with respect to the value of $1. Means earlier an American could purchase rupees for $1 rupees 50 worth of the goods in India, but now the same American can buy with same $1 worth of rupees 60 goods in India. So by 10 rupee he would be getting equivalent to 10 rupee more number of goods, right? Not much difference, but of course it has a huge impact, especially with respect to the exports of our goods. Because see, earlier one can purchase what the goods of 50, now 60 means now he can purchase, let us say, even a single item more. So first, this devaluation basically is a policy tool undertaken by the governments in order to boost your exports. Because इसकी वजह से जब आपने वैल्यू कम कर दिया अपने रुपये की, मीन्स अब जो इम्पोर्टर है अमेरिकन वो आपके यहाँ से ज़्यादा एक्सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं the same set of $1, fine. So this somewhere has seen boosting your exports. At a large scale, if you see individual level, you can see कि यहाँ तो नुकसान हो रहा है, but at large scale there will be more number of exports. So of course, chances of more foreign exchange reserves coming in. Flowing in, of course. So devalued currency eventually causing some West Asian countries to replace the Gulf rupee with their own currencies, flagging confidence. So it is very important that you the other nations have confidence in your currency. In the Indian rupee's stability, combined with an oil revenue linked boom, slowly led to the introduction of sovereign currencies in the region. That is the Gulf region we are talking about. The move in 2023 to withdraw the 2000 note has also impacted confidence in the rupee. Of course, if you keep on taking certain policy issues or policy measures, so of course this some may put the question mark on the on the stability and at the level of confidence in the eyes of the other country. So this is what happened, that earlier the rupee, which was which was more or less dominated on legal tenders in West Asian nations or other Gulf region, over the time see replaced by their own sovereign currency, and this all happened because of the stability issues with the rupee alongside this policy measures, and of course the biggest component was the confidence in the value of the rupee. So the demonetization of 2016, 8 November 2016 also shook confidence in the Indian rupee, especially Bhutan and Nepal. Both countries continue to fear additional policy changes by the RBI. Fine. So I said earlier that Bhutan and Nepal, especially were apprehensive of the Indian rupee, basically post demonetization. Fine. And of course, both countries continue to fear additional policy changes by the RBI, including further demonetization. The rupee's internationalization cannot make a start without accounting for the concerns expressed by the Indian neighbors. Of course, if you want to internationalize the rupee, fine. That rupee should be internationally accepted as a medium of exchange for the international trade and bilateral trade. So of course, for that thing, first we need to take into confidence our neighbors, fine, Bhutan and Nepal especially, because they are still using the Indian rupee. So very little international demand. So what is the downside of internationalization rupee? Demand is बहुत कम है rupee की, very little, because majority of the trade takes place internationally in terms of dollars. Okay. So the rupee is far from being internationalized. The daily average share of the rupee in global foreign exchange market hovers around approximately just 1.6%, while India's share of global goods trade is approximately 2%. That is precisely 1.8%. India has taken some steps to promote the internationalization of the rupee. So what steps have been taken till now? Enable external commercial borrowings in rupee. Now what is the external commercial borrowing? Remember, as the name suggests, external commercial borrowings means these are the commercial borrowings or the loans availed or undertaken by, let us say, Indian businessman or the corporates, fine, in foreign nation, and they will be asking or availing this loan from the NRIs, let us say non-resident Indians, fine, in America, but in terms of rupees. Remember this much. That's why we say this. Enable external commercial borrowings in rupees. With a push to Indian banks to open rupee escrow account for banks from Russia. Recently, 3-4 months back, we were having this kind of event, or we discussing one of our weekly current affairs classes, the post-to account, most of it, everything. Post-to account is simply, let us say, Russian bank. There is no Russian bank in India, fine. So what would happen with this? Let us say sorry, not RBI, but SBI opening a account on behalf of a Russian bank in India, fine, for the payment or receiving of the payment. Let us say when we, because today we import, Russia is the largest exporter of petroleum products, crude oil, to India today, replaced Iraq, fine. But still this payment is being done in payments made by India for the oil imports in terms of dollars and not the rupee that actually we want to, fine. So for that we need a post-to account, fine, an account opened by, let us say, one country bank on behalf of another country's bank, because there is no formal branches of the other country's bank in the former country, fine. And this is basically used for the purpose of, let us say, making payments for your imports, or receiving, of course, receipts for your exports in local currency, fine. So this is called post-to account. For banks from Russia, UAE, Sri Lanka and Mauritius, and measures to trade with 18 countries in rupee instituted. So these are the recent initiatives or the steps taken by the government of India in order to move towards internationalization of rupees, fine. And almost around 18 countries in rupee instituted to trade with almost 18 countries in rupees. However, such transactions have been limited, with India still buying oil from Russia in dollars. You see, ongoing negotiations with Russia to settle trade in rupees have been slowing down, with Russia expected to have an annual rupee surplus of over $40 billion. So over $14 billion worth of rupee already in surplus, having with the Russia, because we are importing lots of petroleum products, crude oil from Russia, and even 2 days back, you see that we have saved on around $7 billion, on crude oil imports, especially when we are doing importing it from Russia, right? So of course, because Russia is providing us cheaper compared to the Middle East countries. So the reports indicated that Russian banks have been averse to the trade, given the risk of further currency depreciation. So of course, this is one issue, because you see during this COVID and post-COVID and even today, our rupee hovering around, in the zone of 82 point something. Means the $1 that used to be just before COVID, it used to be in the range of around 70 rupees for $1. Today, its value is what? Same $1 value is somewhere down to, devalued to how much, or depreciated to almost 82 rupees, equivalent to $1. Fine. So you see, the currency depreciation again poses a serious issue of instability alongside the confidence in your rupee currency, and a lack of awareness among traders about local currency facilities. In short, there is a very little international demand to trade in Indian rupee. You see, this is the major issue. For a currency to be considered a reserve currency, the rupee needs to be fully convertible, readily usable, and available in sufficient quantities. Now, what does it mean when we talk about convertible? So, it should be convertible on the BOP account for both, let us say, current account and capital account. As if, I hope you might be aware that when we trade with the different countries, we have a BOP account to maintain. BOP accounting encompasses two accounts primarily: the current account and the capital account. So both the heads have different elements. Let us say current account, when we talk about, is we are talking about the balance of trade, means or both visible and invisible. Visibles are the goods basically, or merchandise. When you trade, when you import and export merchandise, we call it balance of trade. And when we talk about the services, invisible, of course. So this current account basically comprises of two major, the visible trade alongside the invisible, that is service trade. Fine. Alongside that, we have another set of account, capital account. Capital account generally comprises of, let us say, FDI, FII, ECB that I just explained, additional commercial borrowings. Fine. Let us say grants. Let us say interest received on the loans. Fine, and so on. Fine. So this is the difference between current account. Means in current account we have the items of current nature. Fine. Let us say day-to-day trading, and in capital account we have the nature of capital account. We have the items of capital in nature. Capital means foreign direct investment. Fine. You are investing your capital. right, in another country. So this is how the things go, So of course, rupee is not yet fully convertible on capital account, but it is fully convertible on current account. Means it could be exchanged with, let's say, dollars, or could be accepted for the payment or receipt on current account. Means for the trade in merchandise or goods and in services as well, but not for capital account. On capital account, it is partially convertible, not fully convertible. Right? So it cannot be entirely accepted for, let us say, foreign direct investment purposes. Right? On capital account. So India does not permit full capital account convertibility, though we allowed full current account convertibility in the year 1994 itself. Right? That is allowing free movement of local financial investment assets into foreign assets and vice versa. So this is called full capital account convertibility, means allowing free movement of your local financial investments, for example FDI, assets into foreign assets and vice versa. Right? So easier mobility or movement of these two sets of financial assets. With significant constraints on the exchange of its currency with others, driven by past years of capital flight. Capital flight is outflow of capital from India due to monetary policies and lack of growth. And exchange rate volatility, even significant current account and capital account deficits. So of course, exchange rate तभी आपका impact होता है when you are running, let us say, huge deficit on current account and capital account. When I refer to the deficit, means we are importing more and exporting less. When you import more, means you are making more payments, fine. And when you are exporting less, means you are getting less of receipts, fine. In accounting sense, we call it payment and receipts. Means आप पे ज़्यादा कर रहे हो while importing more, and you are receiving less, when you are exporting less, fine. So this is how the deficit, because you are making more of payments, your expenses is more than what actually you are earning. So when such things happen, when your expenses surpasses your, let us say, revenues, of course we are having deficit. So the same thing happened on the merchandise capital account and current account respectively. Fine. Now the China's experience. Would China experience be valuable for India as well? So let us see here. So how China started its internationalization of local currency called renminbi. So China's example in internationalizing the renminbi, okay, renminbi, not renminbi, it's a renminbi, okay, has lessons. As an online article highlights, before 2004, the RMB, that is this renminbi, could not be used outside China. By 2007, the dim sum bond were actually the bonds issued internationally in the local currency itself, that is RMB, that is renminbi. Renminbi, dim sum bond, and offshore is again RMB, that is renminbi bonds. Market had been created with financial institutions in Hong Kong allowed to issue dim sum bonds by 2009. Post 2008, China pursued a phased approach, enabling the use of RMB, that is RMB is basically the what? Renminbi, RMB, R, M and B, or B for bond as well, for trade finance, that is financial instruments for facilitating international trade and commerce, investment and over the long term as a reserve currency. Today you see, because when we talk about the baskets of this IMF, so there you find the Chinese yuan as well, right? First, it allowed the use of RMB outside China for current account transactions. This is what we have also allowed. Commercial trade, interest payments, dividend payments, and for select investment transactions as well. For example, foreign direct investment, outward direct investment means partial current account convertibility allowed as well, and full current account convertibility that we are actually with the same thing today, in the same position. By 2009, China had signed currency swap agreements that we too, we have also signed this kind of currency swap agreement with the, let us say, Sri Lanka during its, crisis, BOP crisis. Currency swap agreement means where actually we are swapping, let us say, your Indian rupee with the dollars, or the, of course, the Sri Lankan local currency. An exchange of an equivalent amount of money but in different currencies, or this is called swap. With countries such as Brazil, the United Kingdom, Uzbekistan, and Thailand. This was done by China, of course. Soon it allowed central banks of offshore clearing banks and offshore means abroad, of course, outside country, participating banks to invest access this renminbi in debt securities. The Shanghai Free Trade Zone was launched in September 2013 to allow free trading between non-resident onshore and offshore accounts. So non-resident of China, of course, onshore means the country behind and outside country behind. So they were allowed to trade, freely trade. Fine. Over time, the RMB, that is renminbi, was internationalized with the reserve currency status increasingly enabled by Q2 of 2022. The RMB share of international, our share is just 6% of rupee, and the share of Chinese currency is in the international reserve had reached to 2.88%. Not that great, but still better than us. Right? RC is just 1.6%. Chinese currency has international share in international reserve, of course, equal to approximately 2.88%. It is better than us. Pursue these reforms. Now the author is suggesting for reforms, though he is a politician, but remember, even the politician could write good articles, so just give better, this insights as well. Fine. So do not blindly discard that. Yes, if the article has been written by some politicians, so of course nothing to leave it, need not to read, but just focus on the topic is, of course, whether he is writing about some issues, some important issues which are important for the exam point of view as well, or he is totally talking about the politics. Fine. So at least we should have this much of. Okay. So pursue these reforms. Many reforms can be pursued to internationalize the rupee. It must be made more freely convertible with the goal of full convertibility by 2060, let us say. So this is the first suggestion, that though at present we have partial full convertibility on capital account, though we have full convertibility on capital account. So this partial nature of capital account convertibility could be allowed to be full convertibility of capital account by the year, let us say 2060, letting financial investment move freely between India and abroad. This would allow foreign investors to easily buy and sell the rupee anywhere. Of course, enhancing its liquidity and making it more attractive. Additionally, the RBI should pursue deeper and more liquid rupee bond market. The second is RBI should pursue more deeper and more liquid rupee bond market, like RMB bond market. We have seen this Chinese story. Dim sum, of course, bond, that is RMB based bond. Enabling foreign investors and Indian trade partners to have more investment options in rupee, enabling its international use. This is the second suggestion. Indian exporters and importers should be encouraged to invoice their transactions in rupee. This is the third suggestion. Optimizing trade settlement formalities for rupee import-export transaction would go a long way. Means settling the trade in terms of rupee instead of dollars. Right? So this is the third suggestion. Additional currency swap agreements, as with Sri Lanka, as I mentioned, would further allow India to settle trade and investment transactions in rupees without resorting to reserve currencies such as the dollar. So additional currency swap arrangements can be made. The way one we have concluded with Sri Lanka, similar can be made with other countries as well. So this is the fourth suggestion. Additionally, further suggestions, tax incentives to foreign businesses to utilize the rupee in operations in India would also help. So tax, foreign businesses could be incentivized through taxation. Tax incentives could be provided to utilize the rupee in operations in India. Fine. That whatever operations they are undertaking in India, if they are dealing in rupees instead of dollars, they could be incentivized in terms of taxes. Fine. So another suggestion: the RBI and the Ministry of Finance must ensure currency management stability. Again, further suggestion: consistent and predictable insurance retrieval of notes and coins. Of course, you see the withdrawal of notes or demonetization kind of steps, because it results in somewhere losing the confidence of the foreign countries in your local currency, and of course it puts question mark over the stability of your foreign exchange as well. So of course this should be avoided. Okay, and improve the exchange rate regime. More demonetization or devaluation will impact confidence, so it should be avoided. Means more of demonetization and devaluation should be avoided. a start to be made to push for making the rupee an official currency in international organizations, thereby giving it a higher profile and acceptability. Right? So another step, another suggestion is to push to make the rupee an official currency in international organizations. Right? The Tarapur committee related to the, of course, full capitalism convertibility into the 97, Tarapur 1 and Tarapur 2. So that's why in the two respective years, 97 to 2006, recommendations must be pursued including push to reduce fiscal deficit lower than 3.5%, reduction in gross inflation rate in the range of 3 to 5%, and reduction in the gross banking NPS, not performing asset to less than 5%. So for any currency to become a full convertible on a capital account, there are certain important eligibility criteria which a currency should meet, a country should meet. So these are the criteria underlined by or eligibility conditions put by the Tarapur committees 1 and 2. So these suggestions or recommendations must be adhered to. Fine. So to bring down your fiscal deficit to 3.5%, to bring down inflation in the range of 3 to 5%, and also reduce your gross banking non-performing assets that we talk about the NPS in the banking sector. So that too should be reduced, and that should be less than 5%. So if these are the scenarios, current situation, then of course India could think of moving on full capital account convertibility, provided we meet these recommendations or criteria. The government's roadmap for further internationalization of the rupee will make it easier for Indian businesses to do business, invest abroad, and enhance the rupee's liquidity. Fine, so this is a positive step taken by India. While enhancing financial stability, it must also benefit Indian citizens, enterprises, and the government's ability to finance deficits. It is a delicate balance to trade off rupee convertibility for exchange rate stability. Fine, so this is very, very important because it is a delicate balance. Fine, to trade off the rupee convertibility for exchange rate stability, because this could of course pose a serious problem for exchange rate stability. So there is of course trade off between your convertibility and stability. One hopes predictable currency management policies will be instituted. So further we can say that we should come up with a predictable currency management policies, fine, instead of giving other country or putting a question mark over the stability of our exchange regime, financial regime, actually, alongside that, the confidence in the stability of our local currency. Fine. So again, a very good, masterpiece article written by, of course, Firoz Gandhi, though politician, but a very good, but nowhere reflects politics here. Fine. A very good article related to, of course, convertibility of our what? Rupee. So further moving to the next external page, and from here we have some important articles. So understanding the dark patterns, which has been in news from the last weeks, of course. So understanding the dark patterns, what exactly are these? As the name you see, dark, so something of course going to be a negative one. Okay. So what measures have the Department of Consumer Affairs and that Advertising Standards Council of India taken to address the widespread use of deceptive advertising? One day we had the discussion related to this, but not in that detail. Advertising practices. So how are global regulators looking at the issue, and what are some of the commonly used dark patterns seen in the e-market? Okay. So let us have a look one by one. So the Department of Consumer Affairs and Advertising Standards Council of India recently had a joint consultation with stakeholders on the menace of dark patterns. Going back, the SCI has come up with the guidelines for the same, with the central government also working towards norms against dark patterns. So what exactly are the dark patterns first? Okay, so Harry Brignall, a user experience researcher in the UK, introduced the phrase dark pattern in 2010. Remember, characterize deceptive strategies used to treat clients. So this is again we have already discussed it that dark pattern is nothing but a deceptive trick or strategy used by the marketing these platforms in order to make you end up with buying something, let us say, which actually you were not interested at all in buying. Fine. So this is how they actually manipulate your brain. Fine. So a dark pattern refers to a design of user interface technique that is intentionally crafted to manipulate or deceive users into making certain choices or taking specific actions that may not be in their best interest. It is a deceptive practice employed to influence user behavior in a way that benefits the company implementing it. Fine. For example, a common dark pattern is the sneak into basket technique used on e-commerce websites. When a user adds an item to their shopping cart, this is a very familiar example. All of you might be aware of this or had such kind of experience, or you can try even if you don't have such kind of experience. Try this. So of course, when you let us say when you as a user add some item to your shopping cart, let us say on Amazon, a dark pattern may be employed by automatically adding additional items to the cart without the user's explicit consent or clear notifications. Even you see when you order some product, you are shown the combination offers, like you are ordering one product, but you have been shown 2-3 different products in combination with your order product. So again, a kind of manipulation itself, that you want to buy one, but you end up buying 3. So of course this is the gimmick basically played by the these platforms. So sometimes they use the product to your cart without your consent or even clear notification. This can mislead the user into purchasing more items than they intended, potentially increase the company's sales, but compromising the user's autonomy and decision making. Of course, there is always a trade-off. One person can, profit at the cost of another person. Okay, similarly, many of us have encountered pop-up requests for our personal information where we have found it difficult to locate the reject link. It is challenging for customers to decline the acquisition of their personal data if they want to continue on a website, because the choice to depart or reject is so subtly positioned. At times you see when some pop-ups getting coming up on your screen while using, let us say, mobile phones or any website or platforms, you end up you end up with having no option but to proceed, because the rejection button is let us say project or placed such a certain position, fine, where we find it difficult to locate the same. Fine. So this is how they again manipulate. By using such dark patterns, digital platforms infringe on the consumer's right to full transparency of services they use and control over their browsing experiences. What are the different types now? Businesses are using various techniques and deceptive patterns to downgrade the user experience to their own advantage. And some of the common practices are creating a sense of urgency or scarcity. While online shopping, confirmed shaming, wherein a consumer is criticized for not conforming to a particular belief, the forced action of signing up for a service to access content, and advertising one product or service but delivering another. Sometimes you see that you order iPhone and you are ending up with getting some soap. Fine. So of course this is ordering, advertising one product or service but delivering something other. Often of lower quality, even known as the bait and switch technique. Hidden costs, where the bill is revised or costs are added when the consumer is almost certain to purchase the product. Disguised advertisement of a particular product by way of depicting it as news and many more. So such deceptive patterns that manipulate consumer choices and impede their right to be well informed constitute unfair practices that are prohibited under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. So of course this all comes under the Unfair Trade Practices Acts. Fine. Are dark patterns illegal? Now this is the biggest question. If these are illegal, then why they are there? So of course many believe that the use of dark patterns is a business strategy. The legality of dark patterns is a complex matter, as distinguished between manipulation and fraudulent intent can be challenged. Of course, at times it becomes challenging to distinguish between manipulation and fraudulent activities. Fine. As of now, there are no specific regulations in place in most nations against dark patterns. Nonetheless, individuals who have experienced harm as a result of dark patterns may potentially seek compensation for damages In 2022, Google and Facebook faced repercussions. Of course, because blog is so proactive with regard to the privacy of their citizens due to their cookie banners. These companies violated EU and French regulation by making it more difficult for users to reject cookies as compared to the accepting them. Right? Cookies, whatever you go is, whenever you, let us say, visit some platforms or, of course you have this history as well alongside the cookies. Every website creates some cookies because they get the kind of pattern you are searching for, and then they keep on sending notifications and all, fine, keep on manipulating. So what are global regulators saying? Major international authorities are acting and formulating rules to address the issue. In a letter to UK business, the Competition and Markets Authority of UK lists different pressure selling techniques that the CMA, that is Competition and Market Authority of UK, believes would likely violate consumer protection laws and for which action should be taken. So guidelines from the European Data Protection Board were released in 2022 and offer designers and users of social media platforms practical guidance on how to spot and avoid so-called dark patterns in social media interfaces that are in violation of general data protection regulation laws of EU, that is GDPR. So how do we address the dark patterns? At the individual level, let us say. So the Department of Consumer Affairs and ASCI have identified the issue and recently taken certain steps to handle the same. As of now, companies are being asked to desist from using such tactics in the e-market, and on June 30th, 2023, as per information by the PIB, Press Information Bureau, major Indian online marketplaces received a letter from the Department of Consumer Affairs warning them against engaging in unfair trade practices by implementing the dark patterns in their user interfaces to influence consumer choices and infringe consumer rights, as stated in Section 2, Clause 9 of the Consumer Protection Act 2019. So, of course, the Ministry has written us a letter to a warning letter to all these platforms to desist from manipulating the consumers. However, with the growing use of the platforms, a robust legal mechanism is demanded. The Indian government should also amend existing laws to specifically address dark patterns. To do this, new rules aimed against deceptive design practices may need to be introduced, along with the updated consumer protection laws and data protection legislation. So, of course, data protection legislation will be introduced in the upcoming monsoon session. Okay, so this is, of course, important, dark patterns. UPSC like asking questions from such kind of evolving type of concepts and of course such things. Of course, because this is directly to the citizen, impacting the welfare of the citizens, let us say as a consumer, it is manipulating you, us. So what are the provisions of the High Seas Treaty? Again, so why did some developed countries oppose the treaty? What are some of the most contentious issues in the marine biodiversity areas beyond national jurisdiction treaty? So remember, in geography you see that there has been division, let us say, of marine areas. Right? Let us say we have exclusive economic zone 200 nautical miles from the baseline of the country, let us say, fine, or the coastline of the country, fine. And then after that, beyond this national jurisdiction, we have the high seas, fine. So for that, in order to regulate the high seas, or in order to take, use such these areas which are universal in nature, not under the domain of any particular country, we need to have a universal treaty in order to regulate such kind of, let us say, activities or the countries' activities. So the story so far, on June 19, the UN adopted the Marine Biodiversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction (BBNJ) or the High Seas Treaty. It was adopted by United Nations. It became the third agreement to be approved under UN clause, that is United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea, after the 1994 and 1995 treaties, which established the International Seabed Authority and the Fish Stock Agreement. So 1994 and 1995 treaties established ISA, International Seabed Authority, from which we need to take permission in order to make some exploration in your, this marine areas. When did the process start? The idea of protecting the marine environment emerged in 2002 By 2008, the need for implementing an agreement was recognized, which led to the event year resolution in 2015 to form a preparatory committee to create a treaty. The committee recommended the holding of intergovernmental conferences, and after 5 prolonged IGC, that is intergovernmental conferences negotiations, the treaty was adopted in 2023. The treaty's objective is to implement international. So it was adopted in 2023 itself, and recently, and the objective is to implement international regulations to protect life in oceans. Remember, life in oceans or sea is one of the sustainable development goals as well. Beyond national jurisdiction through international cooperation. So what does the treaty entail? The treaty aims to address critical issues such as the increasing sea surface temperature, SST, overexploitation of the marine biodiversity, overfishing, ocean pollution, and unsustainable practices. So all bad things going to make it with the objective to make it good. Beyond national jurisdiction means beyond exclusive economic zone of a nation, EEZ. The first step is establishing marine protected areas to protect the oceans from human activities through a 3/4 majority vote, which prevents the decision from getting blocked by one or two parties. On the fair sharing of, so any decision will be taken by majority, and that is absolute kind of majority, by 3/4 majority. Fine. On the fair sharing of benefits from marine genetic resources, the treaty mandates sharing of scientific information and monetary benefits through installing clear house mechanism. So, of course, treaty also mandates sharing of scientific information alongside this monetary benefits as well, because these are the resources which belongs to all the nations, not particular one nation or one country. Through the mechanism, information on marine protected areas, marine genetic resources, and area-based management tools will be open to access for all the countries, for all parties. This is to bring transparency and boost cooperation, of course. The last pillar of the treaty is capacity building and marine technology. The scientific and technical body will also play a significant role in environmental impact assessment. The body will be creating the standards and guidelines for assessment procedures, of course. This will facilitate the conference of parties to trace future impacts, COP, Conference of Parties 28, which is going to be held this year in UAE, that is particularly Dubai. Fine. So this will, of course, facilitate and help the conference of parties to trace future impacts, identify data gaps, and bring out research priorities. So why did it take so long to sign? The marine genetic resources issue was treaty most contingent element. The parties to the treaty must share and exchange information on marine protected areas and technical, scientific, and area-based management tools to ensure open access to knowledge. So these were the issues, conventions, issue that it was the sharing of information, of course, of your exchange information on marine protected areas. The negotiation of the subject was prolonged due to the absence of. So why it took long time? Because of the absence of provision to monitor information sharing. Actually, there is no mechanism to monitor the sharing of information back to different countries. Fine. In IGC2, that is Intergovernmental Conference 2, small island states supported the idea of having a licensing scheme for monitoring, but was opposed by the developed nations, particularly the US, Russia, stating its notification system would hinder bioprospective research. So, of course, they say that licensing scheme in future would hinder the research work related to, of course, bioprospecting, that is biological prospect related research. In future, another debate was over definition. The use of phrases promote or ensure in different parts of the treaty, especially with respect to the sharing of benefits from marine genetic resources, was heavily debated over. And finally, there was a prolonged negotiations over the adjacency issues. Okay, adjacent related issues. This was specifically applicable to coastal states whose national jurisdiction over the seas may vary. This mainly required special provisions where it can exercise. So further, it was related to the coastal areas or the small island nations, where it was required special provisions, to exercise sovereign rights over the seabed and subsoil in the jurisdiction beyond their exclusive economic zone or national jurisdiction. It prolonged the decision making as it affects the interests of the landlocked and distant states. So who opposed the treaty? Many developed countries, of course, oppose the treaty as they stand by private entities which are at the forefront of advanced research and development in marine technology. Patents relating to marine genetic resources are held by a small group of private companies. Russia and China are also not in favor of the treaty. Russia withdrew from the last stage of reaching a consensus in IGC, Intergovernmental Conference 5, arguing that the treaty does not balance conservation and sustainability. Fine. So you see, even of course there are countries in Russia has not supported this treaty. So these are the issues. Just be mindful of what's going on related to the marine resource protection and all. So finally we have discussed the major articles of the day. Now let us focus on some miscellaneous topics or the news items maybe important for the preliminary exam. So US ready to help in Manipur if asked, says Eric Garcetti, that is ambassador of US ambassador to India. Fine, but of course we are not going to allow any other country to intervene in our domestic affairs. Okay. Okay, Pakistan is expecting us to have good faith, implement the IT, that is Indus Water Treaty, in good faith. Okay. SC asked India to move center against issue of Sarpanch partition in partisan. Sarpanch partism in politics. Okay. 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 So what is Sarpanch partism? You might have seen that in majority of the rural areas, if a woman is getting elected, what happens? The man or the husband often wielding the actual power behind elected women, who remains faceless wives and daughters-in-laws in grassroots politics. Okay. Collegium proposes new Chief Justice for 7 High Courts. Okay, fine. So I hope you all know that for appointment in higher courts, especially High Court and Supreme Court, the collegial system. I'm again with the participants who will be discussing someday in detail. Okay. India France gear up for Modi's visit. Focus on details. Okay, so Prime Minister visit being scheduled. Fine. And this is going to mark the 25 years of strategic partnership next week. Right? So we'll be giving tab on that. Okay. Moving to the next page. Yes. Okay, important. Chandrayaan 3 launch on July 14, lunar landing on August 23 or 24. So launch would be on July 14, and finally this lunar, rover will be landing on the moon on August 23-24. Fine. So landing date is decided based on when there is sunrise on the moon. If the landing does not take place as planned, then ISRO will wait for 1 month to make another attempt in September, says the Space Agency chairman Aston Nath. Fine. So landing, it's not like we are sitting in a closed room and deciding that tomorrow we are going to launch. No, there are certain issues we need to take into mind, keep in mind, and landing date is basically decided based on when there is sunrise on the moon. Fine. And if that day is passed, then of course we will have to wait for another month. Fine. So when it will be launched, finally we will be discussing in detail. In the last 2 days we are taking tab on this. Even yesterday we discussed about the LVM-3, that is launch vehicle Mark 3. It's a 3-stage launch vehicle which will be launching this Chandrayaan 3. Fine. Apart from that, SC asks UGC to detail actions taken against caste discrimination. SC agrees to hear Delhi government challenge to ordinance on July 10. That is related to the appointment of bureaucrats in the national capital. Okay. Okay. Finally, we have landed on the international news, international page. US Treasury Secretary in China to soothe relations. Army must dare to fight. She during inspection. Okay. Okay, not that important. Okay. Business. FinMin, that is Finance Ministry, pushes for reforms to spur FDI, ensure NPS dealt in transparent manner. Okay. Said by Reserve Bank to the banks. Okay, the ministry calls for more attention to issue faced by global investors, including infrastructure and the difficulty in setting up large-scale factories. Quoting foreign investors, the finance ministry says India needs to watch FDI data closely and take measures to facilitate FDI inflows. Net inflows fell sharper, 27.4%, but the ministry said the fall in FDI was not unique to India. Increasing investment in friendly countries was causing fragmentation in FDI flows across the globe, and gross FDI flows moderated 60% last year from the record high of $84.8 billion in 21-22. So last in 2022-23 we had 16% lesser FDI flow compared to the previous year 2021-22 of in aggregate absolute figure almost $85 billion high in FDI, but this is not up to mark. We need to this should be higher than what exactly it is today. Okay. India will gain at least 20 lakh deep tech engineers by 2030. India expects to use carbon tax to meet exports of steel and iron. Okay. Okay. So finally, we have landed on the sports page. So we have covered everything comprehensively, the important articles from the today's Hindu, and apart from that, we have covered some miscellaneous facts and figures as well, for as important for your, let us say, GS answer writing as well as for preliminary exam as well. So that's it from my side. If you have any query, anything, you can put this in the comment section. Until then, keep revising, take care, and thank you for being with us. Stay tuned for tomorrow's analysis. Thank you.